2 years ago in 2020, I mixed and mastered over 1,000 songs, 1,019 to be specific, and I learned a lot of things during that time. Here's a list of a few things that I learned and why I wouldn't recommend you trying to do the same. 2020, I mixed and mastered 1,019 songs. I counted it up. I hit around 300 by March, April, and kind of realized that this was actually a feasible goal that I could hit by the end of December. I sacrificed a lot for it, and it was not good. If you do the math, 1,000 mixes in a year is 2.7 mixes a day with no breaks. That's insane. There's definitely ways that I simplified the process. So point number one, how did I do this? It's through systems. Systems is everything. I had a whole team of assistants. Literally, I had even my wife setting up sessions for me. It was absolutely crazy. There was so much work to do. I had like 2 or 3 interns as well as a producer that was even like partially ghost mixing stuff for me. I had an entire team. I could not have done that on my own. You have to set up systems. This makes me think about if you want to continue mixing in the long run, you got to be able to scale it. And the only way to scale it is by offsourcing some of this work as well. So if you listen to like Jason Joshua or Manny Marroquin, they're not mixing the songs that they're required to by themselves most of the time. They're actually having their assistants do most of the work and then coming through just to make sure that it's good. As a mixer, that makes sense. Like, you have to be scalable. Like, you don't want to be paid only by the time that you're actually working on stuff. You'll never be able to go on vacation. So I think that is very interesting. I currently only have like 1 assistant at the moment. I'm no longer doing it at this scale, and nor do I want to. But if you want to be more passive, I recommend, or getting more work done, I recommend having assistants. I want to give a special shout out to everybody that did help me during the year of 2020, including my dear wife. Number 2, I learned how to over deliver to everybody. So when time is limited, there's a few different tricks that you can use to make sure that people are happy. Every single client, every single project has to be over-delivered. If you have one bad project where they did not like it and you were a total jackass, that's really potentially going to hurt you, as that may be word of mouth against you in the future. One way to eventually get a continuous flow of clients is over-delivering to everybody. And this is really, really crucial, especially if you're doing projects for free. Many people are like, okay, I need more projects to do. I need more clients, so I'm going to start doing some free work just for, the marketing of it. And then they do it, and then they half-ass those projects. That's probably the worst time to ever half-ass any projects, is when you're doing work for free. Work for free is a time where you can win them over. It's really hard to be motivated when there's no payout at the end, but honestly, I recommend even taking a percentage or something that, it doesn't have to be money, but it's a good idea to get them to sacrifice something for your work. One of my favorite books about business is called The Go-Giver, and there's a quote from that book that says, "Your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment." I don't think that you should be, you should be anybody's bitch and just be totally stomped on and disrespected. But I think that you should figure out a way to continually balance and give more than you take. And that's how you grow clientele. If I over deliver and someone is just totally won over by me, they're going to preach my gospel and talk about how awesome it was to work with me. And that's going to lead to more clients, because the only way that I'm going to get more clients is overcoming a barrier of trust. It's not about my mixes sounding good. It's about if people are willing to give me a shot. Lesson number 3 that I learned is that one way that you can appease clients and help them feel better and over-deliver is by constant communication. Clients are actually willing to wait longer than the expected delivery date if you tell them. There's been many times when I was super duper busy and I could not get a mix out for like 2 weeks. And as long as I was in constant communication, less people actually cared. This is a very great way to do this. I do this all the time. I'll say oh, it's going to be a week, and I try to deliver in 3 days. There's a quote that I heard recently by another engineer that says, if you cannot deliver a good product, then deliver it faster. And I think that's a really great way to spread word of mouth and over deliver if you aren't as confident with your mixing. So instead of mixing better, mix faster, deliver it faster, and that's always going to win people over. So number 4 is offering a lower price will make your customers think that your value is your price. Here's the thing. My value, and the reason why people want me to mix something, is because I'm Dee Kei, and maybe it's because of my sound or my brand or whatever, But if I ever get a client because I'm the cheaper option and my value is the price, they're not going to be a good client. They're less likely to be satisfied with my product. They're going to be more upset. And when they find out that revisions cost extra or whatever, there's just more reason to be upset when the value is the price. So make sure that you continue to set your value to be your brand. Make content, whatever it is that you want to do and you want to over deliver and create trust. That's better. You don't always have to make people sacrifice with money, but your value has to be beyond your pricing. Don't be the cheapest option. You'll get the cheapest clients, and that really sucks. 1,019 mixes that I did in 2020, that was probably the most hurtful thing, is like revisions and satisfying these clients that were just some of them I was not able to satisfy. And it's not because my mixes were bad, it was because that they were expecting me to be a bad mixer because my prices were low, so they were never satisfied. And when I went to mix with the Masters a few years back with Leslie Brathwaite, one of the best mixes that someone presented to the group was the mix was in like revision 5, and it was continued to be denied by the artist. It was the best mix that anybody's ever heard during that time week in France. Leslie Brathwaite, this multi-Grammy winning engineer, called up the client and said, yo, I'm telling you right now, this sounds good. I guess the artist had no trust in this mixer doing it. Got the call from Leslie, and Leslie's like, gave him the confidence that it sounds good. All of a sudden, he was okay with the mix. So it obviously wasn't a mix thing. It was a trust thing. It's really interesting. Offering a lower price ain't always it. I don't actually recommend doing the cheapest option. Number 5 is working fast made me a better mixer. I preach this on the Mixing Music podcast all the time. By the way, link in the description if you want to listen to free content about mixing. But I really believe in this. I think that inspiration is always fleeting, and you should always be figuring out ways that you can mix faster. Every time that I finish a mix really quickly, it actually sounds better than if I take my sweet time. Not always. I mean, there's many times when I take my sweet time, but often than not, especially the first pass through, I recommend that you set constraints and time limits and mix fast. You're not overthinking about how loud the vocal is or the drum should be. You're just going based on inspiration. The cool thing is that if you're mixing or if you're engineering, you've probably listened to a lot of music. You have a huge database in your mind of what sounds good and what sounds right, even if you're inexperienced. In fact, I recommend mixing faster the less experienced you are. And the more experienced you are, there's probably a little bit of leniency where you can take longer to mix because you don't lose objectivity as fast. So mix fast. Like, when I did 1,000 mixes, I did not have time to do these mixes, but honestly, it turned out for my benefit. I got good at mixing because I learned to trust my instincts, and I think that's one of the strongest skill sets that I still have to this day. Number 6 is controversial. I talk about this all the time, but I'm going to continue to push this. I found out during this time that analog or hybrid mixing is a total waste of time. I think analog gear, there's a sense of warmth. Well, Dave Pensado specifically says warmth is just another word for dull. It's interesting, but and warmth, the idea of warmth comes from because components in an analog chain cannot handle and preserve the fidelity of the really high-end frequencies. So it literally just smooths out the top. Anyway, we're not going to get into that. When you're getting paid per project and running and committing analog gear adds an extra 30 minutes and revisions adds another 30 minutes, so you're adding time to your mixing, you cannot afford to do that. And how much better a mix can get using analog equipment is so marginally minimal, and on top of that, not even actually better. It's like, I can argue to say if it's better or not, especially when you're in crunch mode and you're trying to be as efficient as possible. Going out of the box is definitely not worth it. When you're charging per project and adding gear, then what's going to happen is you're going to make less money per hour, especially when you're charging so little already. Number 7 is discipline and time management. I mean, come on, waking up in the morning, having the discipline to go to bed on time. I'm a night owl myself, and I did most of my work in the evenings, but still, like, you got to have some sort of discipline, practice good habits. It actually leads to better habits. So if you start getting lazy, laziness leads to laziness. So if you decide that you want to change your mind or change your habits and start doing good habits, that's really going to help you. Also, I'm a huge fan of the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. where he talks about goals are not as important as systems. So like having the systems and recognizing, okay, I got 3 songs to do today or whatever it is, and having the systems like assistance and habits and goals, or habits instead of goals, is going to help you reach your goals. Like focus on what you can do now, what you can control, and have a goal be more of a direction rather than anything else. So it was definitely my daily habits and systems, my time management and discipline, and even my software, my project management software that actually led me to be able to do this. Number 8 is give. During this time in 2020, I actually probably didn't make as much money as you think I did. Again, I did a lot of projects for free or for very, very cheap just to hit this goal. I did notice though that the more that I gave effort and gave of myself and tried to over-deliver, the more people actually spoke highly of my name, and again, continued to break the barriers of trust with other people about me. And the more that you're willing to give openly, like me making this YouTube video and sharing with you my secrets, you may potentially think of me more of a valuable thought leader. Like you might respect my thoughts, which is going to lead you to trust me more, which might then eventually turn into some clientele or paid work. We don't know. But the point is, I definitely wouldn't have had that opportunity if I wasn't being willing to give in the sense of the podcast or the videos or whatever. So it's really interesting. The more that you give, the more work that you can get. And I really, really believe in that. Don't be stingy. And to be honest, rarely ever should you deny someone work or deny someone a project because you're motivated by money. If you ever find yourself motivated by money and money alone, you're probably going to make a bad decision. Pick your clientele and focus on the quality of your clientele rather than how much money it makes, or else you're going to find yourself working with clientele that you absolutely hate. Nobody wants that. Number 9 is create content constantly. A common phrase that we hear among content creators is that you are building your brand passively, whether you do it on purpose or not. Your brand is your reputation, right? And if you can scale your brand and your reputation, get more people to hear about you and discover you, then utilize the algorithms that are super democratized. Building a podcast and using the podcast algorithm platform, it totally changed my life and the projections of my career. Using this YouTube channel, like I'm doing this on purpose. I'm telling you right now that this is one of my secrets. This small little information that I'm giving you is going to break the barrier of trust, which may or may not lead to anything, but I'm giving myself a shot. The more content that you make, the more that you scale and accelerate that word of mouth is going to help you in the long run. So you're building a brand whether you like it or not, so might as well do it on purpose and make content. Even if it's only once a week or 3 times a day, it doesn't matter. Like do something, because that's going to help you. One time I went live on Instagram for 30 minutes. It was a bullshit live stream. I went live for 30 minutes. 2 days later, I made $1,000 from a couple projects that someone gave me because I was front of mind from that live stream. You got to do it. You got to risk yourself and put yourself out there. I really think that in 2022, in today's day and age, and 2023 and beyond, you're going to have to create content. As a small business owner and entrepreneur that we all are, as these mixers, you got to create content in some capacity or another. Number 10 is actually more personal, and I think the rest of the list is a little bit more personal because I said at the beginning of the video that doing over 1,000 mixes in a year really, really hurt me. Emotionally speaking, and I almost quit music completely, and I still feel like I'm recovering from that. So number 10 is don't ever overwork, especially when you can. I'm a workaholic. I'm just so passionate about music that I was just willing to work, and I did work 80 to 100 hours every single week for the first 4 years of my career and go to school full time. I've barely got any sleep, and because of that, at the first few years it was good, but in the long run, it ended up becoming very detrimental, especially in 2020, 2 years ago when I did 1,019 songs. Don't ever overwork, especially when you can. I think it's important to have hobbies and to have things that you're passionate about outside of music or outside of your work environment, and continue to make friends and a trust group outside of your working relationship. Sustainability is the name of the game. It's not about how much you can do and how much money you can make. There's no point if you can make $10 million this year but totally hate music for the rest of your life and never can return back to it. I know many people have done that, and it's just not worth it. But remember to keep it healthy. 10.5 is building on this, and these are all points that I made on Twitter, by the way. Follow me on Twitter, if you want to do that. But 10.5, I said, no amount of money, fame, or respect is ever worth losing your passion over. Consistency is worth much more than short bursts of action. I don't ever want to do that amount of work again and recommend you build your brand in a way that is healthy for you. So that's it. That's 10 points of what I learned from mixing over 1,019 songs in the year of 2020. What did you learn from this? What have you learned when you've been mixing, whether you've been doing it part-time or full-time? Have you fallen out of love with your craft? What kind of tips would you recommend for people that are trying to build a career in mixing? Leave comments down below. I hope this has been helpful for you. Please consider subscribing and liking. Those are free ways to help me out a lot. I love you all. Listen to the Mixing Music Podcast. Happy mixing, my friends. Stay saucy.